the massive doors of the Galactic Council. Hall opened with a sound like thunder rolling across mountains. Kim Tae-ho stepped through wearing a simple black suit that looked plain and ordinary next to the bright-colored robes and shining armor of the alien delegates around him. His footsteps echoed in the enormous space that stretched so far he could barely see the other. And the hall was filled with creatures from every corner of the galaxy. Tall blue-skinned beings with 4 arms stood next to small furry creatures that looked like walking carpets. Giant insects with rainbow-colored wings buzzed near floating jellyfish that glowed with their own light. Rock creatures that moved like living mountains sat beside beings made of pure energy that flickered like candles in the wind. All of them were staring at him. Kim Tae-ho had never seen so many different types of life in one place. The smell alone was overwhelming, sweet flowery scents mixed with metallic odors and things that reminded him of old socks and rotting fish, but he kept walking forward, his back straight and his face calm, even though his heart was beating fast enough to power a small city. Behind him walked Park Sun-mi carrying a tablet computer that looked like a toy compared to the floating crystal devices and holographic displays the other species used. She was nervous too, but she had trained for this moment her whole life. The human delegation was tiny compared to the hundreds of advisors and guards that surrounded the other ambassadors. The whispers started immediately. A tall creature with skin like blue metal and eyes like burning stars leaned toward his neighbor and spoke in a voice like grinding gears. The humans are finally here. I thought they would be taller. A being that looked like a walking tree with golden bark rustled its leaves in what might have been laughter. Such a young species, they have barely learned to leave their own solar system, and already they think they can speak to us. The insect queen from the hive worlds clicked her sharp mandibles together, making a sound like breaking glass. Look at how few of them there are. Do they not understand that numbers show strength in the galaxy? Kim Tae-ho heard every word through his universal translator, but he did not let his expression change. He had expected this reaction. Humans had only reached the stars 50 years ago, while some of these species had been traveling between worlds for millions of years. To them, humans were like children who had just learned to walk, trying to run in a marathon. The council chamber was built to impress and intimidate. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Holographic stars twinkled overhead, showing the positions of every inhabited world in the galaxy. The walls were covered with the flags and symbols of 10,000 different species, each one representing a civilization older than human recorded history. At the center of the hall stood a platform surrounded by rings of seats that rose up like the inside of a massive stadium. The most powerful species sat in the inner rings, while newer and less important civilizations were placed further back. Humans had been given seats in the very last row, so far away that Kim Tae-ho needed binoculars to see the speakers clearly. But today was different. Today, Kim Tae-ho would not be sitting in the back row. Today, he would stand at the center platform and address the entire Galactic Council. The blue-skinned Chancellor Vex-9 from the Andromedan Empire looked down at Kim Tae-ho with obvious disgust. His species had ruled star systems when humans were still living in caves. He wore robes that cost more than most planets' annual budgets, and his crown was made from crystallized starlight. Chancellor Vex-9 raised one of his 4 hands for silence. The hall gradually grew quiet, though Kim Tae-ho could still hear muttering in dozens of different languages. So the humans have finally decided to speak to us, the Chancellor said, his voice booming through the hall without any electronic amplification. We have watched your species for 50 years. You fight wars over resources that we consider worthless. You pollute and destroy your own homeworld. You solve every problem with violence and aggression. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Many species nodded their various heads or made sounds of approval. A creature that looked like a floating brain pulsed with colors that Kim Tae-ho translator told him meant strong agreement. The Chancellor continued, your technology is primitive, your lifespans are short, your social structures are chaotic. You have contributed nothing of value to galactic civilization. Tell us, human, why should we waste our time listening to you? Kim Tae-ho walked slowly to the center platform. His footsteps seemed incredibly loud in the sudden silence. 10,000 alien eyes watched his every movement. Some looked curious, others looked bored. and many looked openly hostile. Park Sun-mi stayed at the edge of the platform, ready to provide any information her ambassador might need. She had memorized every fact about every species in the hall, their histories, their cultures, their weaknesses, and their fears. Kim Tae-ho reached the center of the platform and looked up at the massive crowd surrounding him. He had given speeches before, but never to an audience like this, never to beings who could destroy his entire species with a thought. Never with the future of humanity hanging in the balance. Honorable beings of the galaxy, he began, his voice steady and calm despite the impossible situation. I come before you not to beg for your acceptance. I come to share with you what humanity has to offer. The hall erupted in sounds that Kim Tae-ho, translator, could not even begin to process. Some creatures laughed, others hissed or growled or made sounds like breaking glass. The floating brain creature pulsed with colors that definitely meant amusement. A voice from the crowd called out, "What could you possibly offer us? You have no advanced technology, no ancient wisdom, no resources we cannot take from 1,000 other worlds." Kim Tae-ho smiled slightly. That is exactly what I hoped you would ask. He reached into his jacket and pulled out something that made the entire hall fall silent. A simple paper photograph, old-fashioned and primitive by galactic standards. The holographic projectors above the platform detected it and magnified the image for everyone to see. The photograph showed a human child no more than 6 years old with dark hair and bright eyes. She was sitting on the ground in what was clearly a refugee camp. Her clothes were dirty and torn, but she was smiling as she handed half of her small portion of food to a young alien creature beside her. The alien in the photograph was clearly starving, its large eyes dull with hunger and its thin body barely covered by rags. It was a species that Kim Tae-ho recognized from the council hall, one of the insect people from the Outer Rim worlds. Kim Tae-ho let the image hang in the air for a long moment before speaking again. This photograph was taken on Earth 3 months ago, he said. The child name is Kim So-young. She is 6 years old. She has never traveled to another planet. She has never seen advanced technology. She knows nothing about galactic politics or ancient wisdom. Hall remained silent, everyone staring at the image. The being she is feeding, he continued, is a refugee from the Kepler system. His family fled when the automated mining ships stripped their world bare. He had been without food for 3 days when he collapsed outside So-young home. Kim Tae-ho paused, letting his words sink in. So-young had been saving that food for 2 days. She was hungry herself. Her family had very little. But when she saw someone who needed help, she did not hesitate. She did not ask what species he was, or whether his people were important to galactic politics. She saw someone who was suffering and she shared what she had. The silence stretched on. Some delegates were leaning forward now, their expressions changing from mockery to something else. This Chancellor Vex-9, Kim Tae-ho said, looking directly at the blue-skinned leader, is what humanity offers. We offer something that your advanced civilizations seem to have lost. We offer the willingness to sacrifice for others, even when those others are strangers, even when there is no logical reason to help. Chancellor Vex-9 scoffed loudly. One act of kindness does not erase your species' history of violence and destruction. You are absolutely right, Kim Tae-ho replied. But let me ask you something. When was the last time any of your species willingly sacrificed for another? When was the last time you put the needs of strangers above your own comfort? The hall buzzed with uncomfortable murmurs. Kim Tae-ho continued. You have all achieved great things. You have built magnificent civilizations. You have mastered technologies that seem like magic to us, but in all your wisdom and advancement, you have forgotten something important. You have forgotten how to hope when hope seems impossible. He gestured to the photograph still hanging in the air. This child does not know that helping others is illogical. She does not know that sharing resources is inefficient. She does not know that according to galactic law, she owes nothing to alien refugees. She only knows that someone needed help and she could provide it. Kim Tae-ho took a deep breath and looked around the hall, meeting as many alien eyes as he could. That, honored delegates, is why you should listen to us. Not because we are advanced or wise or powerful, but because we still remember how to do the impossible. We still remember how to hope. The image of the human child sharing her food with the alien refugee hung in the air like a challenge to everything the Galactic Council believed about humanity. Chancellor Vex-9 stood up slowly, his blue skin darkening with anger in his Arms crossed in a gesture of complete dismissal. One photograph does not change history. Human, he said, his voice echoing through the massive hall. Your species has fought more wars in the past century than most civilizations fight in 1,000,000 years. You kill each other over different skin colors, different beliefs, different pieces of land. You have poisoned your own atmosphere and destroyed countless other species on your homeworld. The crowd murmured in agreement. Many delegates nodded their various heads or made sounds of approval. The floating brain creature pulsed with colors that meant strong agreement, while the insect queen clicked her mandibles in what sounded like laughter. Chancellor Vex9 continued, his voice getting louder. You speak of sacrifice and hope, but your history is written in blood. You have never known true peace. Your governments cannot even agree on basic facts about your own planet. How can you claim to offer anything to civilizations that have existed since before your star was born? Kim Tae-ho listened to every word without changing his expression. He had expected this reaction. The Chancellor was not wrong about human history. Earth had seen terrible wars and countless acts of cruelty, but that was not the whole story. The crystal beings from Proxima Prime chimed in with their harmonic voices, speaking in perfect unison. The humans show promise in individual acts of kindness, but their collective behavior demonstrates chaos and destruction. Their wars have killed billions of their own kind. A creature that looked like a walking mountain made of living stone rumbled its agreement. The rock people of Titan have observed human behavior for decades. They solve disputes with violence, not wisdom. They consume resources without thought for tomorrow. They are a young species acting like children with dangerous toys. Kim Tae-ho waited for the voices to quiet before responding. You are correct about our wars and our mistakes, he said calmly. But let me ask you something. How many of your species have fought in actual battles against impossible odds? How many have faced true extinction and found a way to survive? The hall buzzed with confused murmurs. Most of the advanced species had evolved past physical conflict millions of years ago. They used technology, diplomacy, and economic pressure to solve disputes. War was considered primitive and unnecessary. The gas cloud intelligence from the nebula sector pulsed with shifting colors. We have evolved beyond the need for violence. Our conflicts are resolved through logical debate and mutual agreement. Physical combat is inefficient and wasteful. Kim Tae-ho nodded thoughtfully. I see. Then perhaps you can explain something to us primitive humans, he said, and something in his tone made the entire hall pay closer attention. 3 months ago, the Devourer fleet appeared at the edge of our galaxy. The mood in the hall changed instantly. The casual dismissal disappeared, replaced by tension and fear. The Devourer fleet was the one thing that terrified every species in the galaxy. These mechanical beings had destroyed 17 entire galaxies before reaching theirs, consuming every form of life they encountered. We have all received the reports, Kim Tae-ho continued. They cannot be reasoned with, they cannot be bargained with. They do not seek territory or resources. They exist only to consume, to turn all life and matter into fuel for their endless journey across the universe. The insect queen Ziltrab buzzed nervously, her rainbow wings folding tight against her body. The hive worlds have lost 3 outer colonies to their scouts, she admitted. Their consuming beams leave nothing behind, not even atoms. Kim Tae-ho pulled out a data pad and activated a holographic display showing the Devourer fleet. Massive dark ships moving in perfect formation across the galaxy. Your scientists estimate they will reach the core worlds in 2 years, he said. Your military strategists say we need at least 5 years to evacuate the most important planets. The crystal beings chimed in worried harmonies. Our calculations show a 99.7% probability of total galactic extinction within 3 years. Your diplomats have failed to establish any communication with them, Kim Tae-ho continued. Your most advanced weapons barely damage their hulls. Your strongest shields cannot stop their consuming beams. You have tried everything logical, everything reasonable, everything that should work. He paused and looked around the hall at the faces of beings from across the galaxy, seeing fear in eyes that had not known fear for millennia. You have accepted defeat, he said simply. The hall erupted in angry sounds. How dare this primitive human suggest they had given up? The floating brain creature pulsed with colors that meant outrage, while the walking mountain rumbled like an earthquake. We have not given up, Chancellor Vex9 said angrily. We are exploring every possible solution. Our best minds are working on the problem, Kim Taeho smiled sadly, but you are only exploring possible solutions. That is the problem you are trying to solve. An impossible enemy with possible methods. Park Sunmi stepped forward and handed him another datapad showing detailed analysis of the Devourer fleet. The beings who built these ships consumed 17 galaxies. She said they have encountered every type of technology, every form of life, every possible defense. The reason they are unbeatable is because they have already beaten everything beatable. Queen Ziltrap buzzed impatiently. What would you have us do? Human, the Devourers are beyond our understanding. We have exhausted every logical option. Kim Taeho walked closer to the center of the platform, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. That is exactly the problem. Your Majesty, you have only tried the logical options. You have only used civilized methods. You have only attempted things that make sense. He gestured to the holographic display showing the approaching Devourer fleet. The beings who created these machines thought of everything. They planned for every logical response, every reasonable defense, every civilized attempt to stop them. The gas cloud intelligence pulsed with confusion. Are you suggesting we abandon logic and reason? Those are the foundations of all advanced civilization. No, Kim Taeho replied. I am suggesting that sometimes the impossible requires the impossible, and humans, your honor, specialize in the impossible. The hall fell silent again, waiting to hear what the human would say next. Let me tell you another story, Kim Taeho said. 500 years ago, my people faced an enemy that seemed unbeatable. The ocean itself, during the great storms, waves taller than mountains, destroyed our strongest ships. Our best technology was useless against the raw power of nature. He began walking around the platform as he spoke. Our wisest leaders said it was impossible to fight the sea, that we should accept our limitations and stay on land. But humans have never been good at accepting limitations. Chancellor leaned forward despite himself. What did you Dao built better ships? Kim Taeho said simply. When those failed, we built different ships. When those failed, we learned to swim farther. When we could not swim far enough, we learned to hold our breath longer. When that was not enough, we learned to work together in ways we never had before. The crystal beings chimed in confused harmonies. But the Devourer fleet is not a natural disaster. They are machines designed specifically to consume galaxies. You are absolutely right, Kim Taeho agreed. They are beyond our understanding. They are beyond our technology. They are beyond our ability to fight using normal methods. That is exactly why we can defeat them. Hall buzzed with discussion. Some delegates looked intrigued. Others looked horrified at the idea of abandoning logic and reason. Kim Taeho continued. Every species in this council has tried to understand the Devourers. You have studied their technology, analyzed their patterns, searched for weaknesses. Using your greatest minds, Park Sunmi activated another display showing the council various failed attempts to find a solution. The crystal beings used pure mathematics. The gas cloud intelligence used quantum computing. The ancient tree people used wisdom gathered over millions of years. All failed because you are trying to solve an impossible problem with possible solutions. Commander Yulkar from the warrior worlds in the outer rim stood up slowly. His people had actually fought the Devourers in direct combat and survived, though barely. The human speaks truth, he said in a voice like grinding metal. Everything we have tried has failed. Logic has failed. Technology has failed. Perhaps it is time to try something else. What are you suggesting? Human Chancellor Vex9 asked, though his tone suggested he was not sure he wanted to hear the answer. Kim Taeho stopped walking and faced the council directly. I am suggesting we stop trying to understand them. I am suggesting we stop trying to outthink them. I am suggesting we do something so completely insane, so utterly impossible that even machines designed to consume galaxies will not see it coming. The hall fell completely silent. I am suggesting, Kim Taeho said quietly, that we give them exactly what they want. The silence in the Galactic Council Hall was so complete that Kim Taeho could hear his own heartbeat echoing off the distant walls. 10,000 beings from across the galaxy held their breath, waiting to hear what impossible thing the human ambassador would suggest next. Give them what they want, Chancellor. Vex9 repeated slowly, his blue skin pale with confusion. What could you possibly mean, human? The Devourers want to consume everything. They want to turn all life in the galaxy into fuel for their endless journey. Exactly, Kim Taeho said with a slight smile. They want the richest, most energy-dense targets they can find. They want to consume the greatest concentrations of life and technology in the galaxy, so we give them the greatest target. They have ever seen the insect Queen Ziltrab buzzed. Nervously, her rainbow wings fluttering with agitation. You speak in riddles, human. Explain yourself clearly, Kim. Taeho gestured to his aide Lee Min-ho, who stepped forward with a new holographic display. The display showed the Devourer fleet movement patterns across 17 different galaxies. Each galaxy showed the same pattern of destruction. They always attack the same way, Kim Taeho explained. They start at the outer rim and work their way inward. They consume the most energy-rich planets first, then move to the next most valuable targets. They never deviate from this pattern because it is the most efficient method. The crystal beings chimed in harmonic agreement. This pattern has been consistent across all 17 galaxies they have consumed. The mathematical probability of them changing their behavior is less than 0.1%, but that is exactly why we can beat them, Kim Taeho said. Something that never changes can be predicted, and something that can be predicted can be trapped. Park Sun-mi activated another part of the display showing detailed energy readings. From across the galaxy, the Devourers are drawn to concentrations of life force and advanced technology, she explained. The readings show they will always choose the richest target available. Dr. Choi Haijin, the human military strategist, stepped forward. From the back of the platform, she was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. The Devourer fleet moves in predictable patterns, she said in a clear, confident voice. They consume star systems from the outside, in always taking the most energy-rich planets first, because it is logical. The floating brain creature pulsed with colors of agreement. Exactly, Kim Taeho said, so we propose something completely illogical. We create a target so rich, so energy-dense, so absolutely irresistible that they will break their own patterns to consume it. The hall began to buzz with nervous discussion. What could possibly be valuable enough to change the behavior of machines that had consumed 17 galaxies of Commander? Yolkar from the Warrior Worlds leaned forward in his seat. What kind of target, human? Kim Taeho took a deep breath and looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of species. We gather every ship, every space station, every piece of advanced technology in the galaxy. We bring them all to one star system. We make it the richest, most energy-dense target the Devourers have ever encountered. The hall fell silent again as the implications sank in. You want to gather all of Galactic civilization in one place, Queen Ziltra said, her voice barely above a whisper. Not just gather, Kim Taeho corrected. Concentrate every important leader, every advanced piece of technology, every ship capable of interstellar travel, all of it in one system. The gas cloud intelligence pulsed with rapidly shifting colors that would be suicide. If your plan fails, every advanced civilization in the galaxy would be destroyed in a single battle. Kim Taeho nodded calmly. You are correct, which is why they will never see it coming. No logical species would ever risk everything in one location. It goes against every principle of military strategy, every rule of survival. The ancient tree, being called Wisdom of Ages, spoke for the first time, its voice like wind through leaves. Young human, your species has existed for barely a moment in galactic time. We have survived for millions of years by being careful, by being wise, by never taking unnecessary risks. Kim Taeho bowed respectfully toward the ancient being. Honored elder, I do not question your wisdom, but the Devourers are not a normal threat. They cannot be defeated with normal methods. They expect us to be careful, to be wise, to follow the rules. He gestured to the holographic display, still showing the Devourer fleet approaching the galaxy. That is why they have been unstoppable for so long. They were designed by beings who thought of every logical response, every reasonable defense, every civilized attempt to stop them, but they were not designed to handle complete insanity, Dr. Choi Haijin added. They were not programmed to deal with a species crazy enough to bet everything on a single impossible plan. The crystal beings chimed in worried harmonies. The mathematical probability of success would be infinitesimally small, less than 1%. Park Sun-mi confirmed, reading from her tablet. The hall erupted in chaos. Delegates from thousands of species argued, shouted, and protested in every language known to the galaxy. The suggestion was madness beyond anything they had ever heard. You are asking us to commit suicide, the floating brain creature pulsed with colors of outraged Chancellor. Vex 9 stood up, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of complete rejection. This is insanity. Human, even if we could gather every ship in the galaxy in one place, even if we could create a target rich enough to change the Devourer's behavior, what then? We would all be destroyed together, Kim. Taeho waited for the noise to die down before responding. That brings us to the second part of our plan, he said quietly. The hall fell silent again. Min-Ho activated a new holographic display showing the human solar system with Earth at the center. We propose to gather everything at. Sell the human home system, he said. The insect queen buzzed in confusion. Why your system human? What makes it special? Because Kim. Taeho said simply, we are willing to lose it. The words hung in the air like a physical weight. Every being in the hall stared at the human. Ambassador in shock, you would sacrifice your homeworld commander? Yulkar asked, his voice filled with disbelief. If necessary, Kim. Taeho replied without hesitation. Earth is one world, the galaxy contains trillions of worlds. If losing one can save the rest, then the choice is obvious. But your people, the gas cloud intelligence pulsed with confused colors. Your families, your history, everything your species has ever built will be meaningless if the Devourers consume the galaxy, Kim. Taeho said. Firmly, better to die as heroes than to live as cowards. Better to sacrifice everything in an attempt to save the future than to watch helplessly as everything dies anyway. There. Choi Haijin stepped forward. The human government has already voted, she announced. Every nation on Earth, every leader, every citizen who could be reached, all have agreed to the Phoenix Protocol. What is the Phoenix Protocol? Chancellor Vex 9 asked, though his tone suggested he was not sure. He wanted to know. Kim. Taeho smiled grimly. The Phoenix Protocol is our final solution. When the Devourer fleet gathers at Seoul, when they are all in one place focused on consuming the greatest prize in galactic history, we collapse the sun. The hall fell completely silent. The suggestion was beyond madness. It was the deliberate destruction of an entire star system. You would destroy your own star, Queen Ziltra whispered. We would turn our star into a weapon, Kim. Taeho corrected. The energy release would be massive enough to destroy even the Devourer fleet, but it would also destroy everything else in the system, including Earth. The ancient tree being rustled its leaves in what might have been amazement. You would kill yourselves to save the galaxy. We would die fighting, Kim. Taeho said proudly, rather than die hiding, and with luck, with perfect timing, with the kind of desperate courage that only comes when everything is at stake. Some of us might even survive. How? Park Sun-mi asked the question that everyone was thinking. Kim. Taeho looked around the hall at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. Because humans have been preparing for this possibility longer than you think. We have been working on something we call the Phoenix Protocol, not just the destruction, but the escape. The holographic display changed, showing complex calculations and escape routes. If we can time everything perfectly, he explained. If we can coordinate the stellar collapse with the exact moment when the Devourer fleet is fully committed to consuming the system, we might be able to use the confusion to escape. The energy release would be so massive, Dar Choi Haijin added, so chaotic that even the Devourers would be caught off guard for a brief moment. Their sensors would be overwhelmed, their systems overloaded, and in that moment of chaos, Lee Min-Ho continued, the surviving ships could escape using emergency jump drives. The explosion would mask our retreat. It is still almost certainly suicide, Commander Yulkar said, but his voice carried a note of admiration. Almost certainly, Kim. Taeho agreed. But almost certainly is better than certainly, and sometimes a small chance is all humans need. He looked around the hall one more time. I am not asking you to trust our plan. I am asking you to trust human stubbornness. We are a species that has never learned when to quit. We are too stupid to accept defeat. We are crazy enough to try the impossible when the possible has failed. The hall remained silent as 10,000 beings contemplated the most insane plan in galactic history. The Galactic Council Hall had never seen such chaos in its million-year history. Delegates from thousands of species were on their feet, shouting, arguing, gesturing wildly with arms, tentacles, and appendages that had no names in any human language. The translation systems were overloaded, trying to process the flood of outrage, fear, and desperate hope. Chancellor Vex 9 voice boomed over the noise, his blue skin now almost black with stress. This is madness. You are asking us to put every ship, every leader, every piece of technology in one star system. If your plan fails, we all die together. The floating brain creature pulsed with rapid flashing colors that meant extreme agitation. The mathematical probability of success is less than 1%. This is not strategy. This is collective suicide. Queen Ziltra buzzed so loudly her wings created a sound like breaking glass. My hive worlds have survived for 10 million years by being cautious, by never taking unnecessary risks. You want us to abandon everything that has kept us alive, but in the back of the hall, other voices were beginning to be heard. Commander Yulkar of the warrior species from the Outer Rim stood up slowly. His people had fought the Devourers directly and lost 3 entire worlds to their consuming beams. The human has a point, he said in a voice like grinding metal. Everything we have tried has failed. Logic has failed. Technology has failed. Ancient wisdom has failed. Maybe it is time to try something that makes no sense. The crystal beings chimed in worried harmonies, but with a note of agreement. Our calculations show that all conventional methods have a 0% chance of success. Perhaps an unconventional method with a small chance is preferable. To certain extinction. Dr. Choi Haijin stepped forward carrying a datapad filled with technical specifications. The Devourer fleet has consumed 17 galaxies using the same pattern, she said. They attack outer systems first, work their way inward, taking the most energy-rich targets. They have never deviated from this pattern because it is the most efficient, but efficiency assumes your enemy will behave logically. Lee Min-ho added, what if we do not behave logically? What if we do something so unexpected that their programming cannot adapt? The gas cloud intelligence pulsed with shifting colors showing internal conflict. But this plan requires every species to risk everything. Our fleets, our leaders, our entire civilizations. Kim Tae-ho walked to the center of the platform and looked up at the massive crowd surrounding him. That is exactly why it will work, he said quietly. No logical species would ever risk everything in one battle. It goes against every instinct, every rule of survival, every principle of military strategy. He gestured to the holographic display, still showing the approaching Devourer fleet. The beings who created these machines thought of everything. They planned for every logical response, every reasonable defense, every civilized attempt to stop them, but they did not plan for complete insanity, Park Sun-mi said. They did not program their machines to handle a species crazy enough to bet the entire galaxy on a single impossible plan. The ancient tree, being called Wisdom of Ages, rustled its leaves slowly. Young human, even if your plan could work, even if we could gather every ship in the galaxy, even if we could create a target rich enough to change the Devourer's behavior, you are asking us to sacrifice your homeworld. Kim Tae-ho nodded solemnly. Earth is already dead if we do nothing, he said. Our children will grow up in a universe where life itself is being consumed. Better to die fighting for something than to die for nothing. His voice carried across the hall, reaching every corner of the massive space. The human government has already voted every nation on Earth, every leader, every citizen who could be reached. All have agreed to the Phoenix Protocol. We would rather die as heroes than live as cowards. A small creature covered in silver fur stood up in the middle section of the hall. The Velton people have lost 2 colonies to the Devourer scouts, she said in a voice like chiming bells. Our survivors tell us that the machines cannot be stopped by any weapon we possess. She paused, looking around at the other delegates. But they also tell us that the machines follow patterns. They are predictable. If the humans' plan could break those patterns, if it could force the Devourers to change their behavior, then perhaps the impossible could become possible. Commander Yulkar nodded slowly. I have seen what happens when humans fight alongside other species. They do not fight like logical beings. They fight like forces of nature. On Kepler 442b, when we were losing badly, a human commander named Major Park Bo-young refused to abandon wounded civilians. The hall listened intently as the gruff warrior continued. She ordered her ship to ram the Devourer vessel directly. It should have been suicide, but the impact damaged the Devourer main processor. For the first time in recorded history, one of their ships was destroyed by a direct attack, not by superior technology, he emphasized. Not by clever tactics, but by pure impossible determination. Queen Ziltra buzzed thoughtfully. One ship. but the main fleet contains millions of vessels, which is why we need something bigger than one ship, Kim Tae-ho said. We need something so massive, so completely overwhelming that even their adaptive programming cannot handle it. The crystal beings chimed in complex harmonies. The energy readings from a combined galactic fleet would be unprecedented. The concentration of life force and technology in one system would be unlike anything. In the universe, Dr. Choi Hai-jin activated another holographic display showing energy calculations. The Phoenix Protocol would turn our sun into a directed weapon, she explained. The star collapse would be channeled, focused, aimed directly at the heart of the Devourer fleet. The floating brain creature pulsed with colors of amazement and terror. The energy release would be beyond anything the galaxy has ever seen, but it would also destroy everything in the system, Lee Min-ho added, including Earth itself. The hall fell silent as delegates contemplated the magnitude of what the humans were proposing. An entire species willing to sacrifice their homeworld to save the galaxy. Chancellor Vex 9 sat down heavily, his forearms hanging at his sides. You are asking us to bet the existence of all galactic civilization on the desperate gamble of a species that has barely learned to travel between stars. Kim Tae-ho looked directly at the Chancellor. We are asking you to bet on something that cannot be calculated, he said. Human stubbornness, human refusal to accept defeat, human willingness to try the impossible when the possible has failed. Gas cloud intelligence pulsed with slowly shifting colors. We have achieved great things through logic and reason. Our civilizations have lasted for millions of years by being careful, by being wise. And where has that wisdom gotten you now? Kim Tae-ho asked gently. The Devourers are coming. Your wisdom cannot stop them. Your caution cannot save you sometimes. The wise thing to do is to abandon wisdom. Commander Yolkar stood up again, his scarred face showing the first expression of hope anyone had seen in months. The Outer Rim warriors pledge our ships to the human plan, he announced loudly. The hall erupted in surprised murmurs as other delegates began to consider the impossible. The crystal collectives calculate that illogical action may produce logical results, chimed the crystal beings. Our ships will join the fleet. The gas cloud intelligence agrees to participate, pulsed the nebula representatives. Logic has failed. Perhaps it is time to try something beyond logic. One by one species began to pledge their support. The small silver-furred Veltons, the walking mountain creatures, the floating jellyfish beings, even some of the most ancient and conservative species began to nod in agreement. The ancient tree, being wisdom of ages, spoke slowly. Perhaps it is time for old wisdom to learn from young courage, she said. The eternal forests will contribute our bio-ships to this desperate gamble. Chancellor Vex 9 looked around the hall as species after species pledged their support. His blue skin was pale with stress, but his eyes showed a glimmer of something that might have been hope. This is madness, he said quietly, but it is the only madness that might work. The Andromedan Empire will join this impossible plan. Kim Tae-ho bowed deeply to the assembled delegates. Thank you, he said simply. Together we will either save the galaxy or die trying, and sometimes that is all anyone can ask. Fourth hall buzzed with activity as species began to plan the greatest gamble in galactic history. The gathering of every ship, every leader, every piece of advanced technology in one star system for one final desperate battle against the impossible. In 6 months, the Sol system would become either the galaxy's salvation or its tomb. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council agreed to the most insane plan in the history of the universe. The Sol system had been transformed into something that had never existed before, a gathering point for every advanced civilization in the galaxy. Kim Tae-ho stood on the observation deck of the human flagship, watching ships arrive from every corner of known space. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. Crystal cities, the size of moons, floated near Jupiter, their surfaces glowing with inner light. The living vessels of the gas cloud intelligence drifted between Mars and Venus, pulsing with colors that meant determination and fear. The ancient wooden ships of the eternal forests orbited Earth-Moon. These vessels had been grown rather than built, their hulls made from trees that had lived for millions of years. The Insect Queen's hive ships buzzed in perfect formations around the asteroid belt, while the walking mountain people's stone vessels moved with the slow majesty of planets. Commander Yolkar warrior ships from the outer Rim had taken position at the edge of the system. Their hulls were scarred from battles with Devourer scouts, but they had come anyway, because their commander believed in the human plan. Even the floating brain creatures had brought their thought ships, vessels that looked like giant skulls made of crystal and metal. Park Sun-mi approached carrying the latest reports from across the galaxy. Sir, she said quietly, the last of the evacuation fleets have departed from the core worlds. Every non-essential ship, every civilian transport, every supply vessel has been moved to the backup systems. Kim Tae-ho nodded without taking his eyes off the incredible sight outside. How many ships? Total over 2 million vessels, she replied, representing every species in the galaxy. The energy readings are off the charts. The Devourers will not be able to resist this concentration of life and technology. Dr. Choi Hyjin joined them at the observation window carrying a tablet filled with technical data. The Phoenix Protocol is ready, she announced. The solar collapse charges are in position around the sun. When you give the word, we can trigger the stellar explosion, but the timing will have to be perfect, Lee Min-ho added from his position at the communications console. Too early and the Devourers will escape. Too late, and they will consume too much of the fleet before we can stop them. Kim Tae-ho turned away from the window and looked at his small team. These 3 humans, along with a handful of others, were coordinating the largest military operation in galactic history. Most species had brought hundreds of advisors and support staff, but the humans had kept their team small and focused. The communication system crackled to life with an incoming message from Chancellor Vex 9 aboard the Andromedan flagship. Human Ambassador, we are receiving reports that the Devourer fleet has changed course. They are coming directly toward Seoul instead of following their usual pattern. Kim Tae-ho smiled grimly. It worked. They cannot resist the energy concentration here. They are abandoning their systematic approach and coming straight for the biggest prize they have ever seen. Queen Ziltrav's voice buzzed through the speakers. My scouts report that every Devourer ship in the galaxy is moving toward this system. They are not leaving any reserves behind. This is their entire force. The ancient tree, being wisdom of ages, spoke in her rustling voice. The forest ships sense great danger approaching. The Devourers are moving faster than ever before. The concentration of life here calls to them like nothing they have encountered. Kim Tae-ho activated the general fleet communication system. All ships, this is Ambassador Kim Tae-ho. The Devourer fleet is approaching faster than expected. They will reach the outer edge of the Sol system in 18 hours. All final preparations should be completed immediately. The response was immediate. Thousands of ships began moving into final positions. The Crystal Cities powered up their defensive systems while the gas cloud intelligence vessels began synchronizing their energy patterns. The warrior ships from the outer rim locked their weapons systems and prepared for battle, but this was not a battle they were meant to win. This was a sacrifice disguised as a fight. Dr. Choi Hyjin checked her readings again. The Devourers are not holding anything back, she reported. Every ship, every consuming beam, every piece of technology they possess is coming here. They have committed everything to this attack because they have never encountered anything like this before. Kim Tae-ho said. 2 million ships from every advanced civilization in the galaxy, all concentrated in one star system. The energy readings must be driving their consumption instincts to maximum. Lee Min-ho looked up from his console. Sir, I am receiving messages from across the fleet. Many ships are requesting permission to evacuate non-essential personnel to the backup systems. Kim Tae-ho considered this carefully, then shook his head. Tell them that anyone who wants to leave may do so. But remind them that we are not just fighting for our lives today, we are fighting for the future of all life in the galaxy. Park Sun-mi activated another communication channel. Sir, the civilian evacuation ships are requesting final messages from the fleet. Many beings want to say goodbye to their families. Grant the request, Kim Tae-ho said. Allow 2 hours for personal communications, then we go silent until the battle begins. The next 2 hours were the most emotional in galactic history. Millions of beings across the Sol system sent final messages to their loved ones, the crystal beings. Chimed farewell songs that would be remembered for millennia. The gas cloud intelligence pulsed with colors of love and hope. The ancient tree beings shared memories that stretched back to the beginning of galactic civilization. Commander Yulkar sent a message to his homeworld that was intercepted by the human communication systems today. We fight alongside the bravest species in the galaxy, he said. The humans have shown us what it means to sacrifice everything for others if we die today. We die with honor. Even Chancellor Vex 9 sent a message that surprised everyone. I was wrong about the humans, he admitted to the Andromedan High Council. They are not a young species, they are not primitive. They are something we had forgotten existed. A species willing to sacrifice everything for the future queen. Ziltra's message to her hive worlds was simple but profound. The humans have taught us that sometimes the logical thing to do is to abandon logic. If we survive this day, it will be because we learned to hope when hope seemed impossible. As the communication period ended, Kim Tae-ho sent his own message to Earth. To the people of Earth, he said, "This is your ambassador speaking from the Sol system. We are surrounded by the greatest fleet. In galactic history, every advanced civilization in the galaxy has come to our home system to fight alongside Yuju." Paused, looking out at the incredible sight of millions of ships from thousands of species, all gathered around his homeworld. If we do not survive this day, know that we died as heroes. If we do survive, know that we proved something important. We proved that different species can work together when everything is at stake. The communication system went silent as the fleet prepared for the arrival of the Devourer fleet. Dr. Choi Hyjin checked her instruments one final time. The Phoenix protocol is armed and ready, she announced. The sun can be collapsed on your command. Kim Tae-ho nodded and looked around at his team, at the humans who had convinced the galaxy to attempt the impossible. Park Sun-mi was calm and focused. Lee Min-ho was monitoring communication channels. Dr. Choi Hyjin was ready to trigger the stellar explosion that would either save or destroy everything. Through the observation window, the first dark shapes of the Devourer fleet appeared at the edge of the system. They were coming. The greatest gamble in galactic history was about to begin. All ships, this is Ambassador Kim Tae-ho, he announced to the fleet. The Devourer fleet has arrived. Remember, we are not here to win a battle. We are here to save the galaxy. Whatever happens in the next few hours, remember that every species in the galaxy chose to be here, chose to risk everything for the future. The response came back in thousands of languages and from millions of beings. We are with you, human. We are ready. Kim Tae-ho looked out at the approaching darkness and whispered a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. Then he turned to his team and said the words that would echo through galactic history, "Let us show them what happens when the galaxy fights as one." 6 months later, the Sol system had become the strangest sight in galactic history. Ships from thousands of species surrounded the human homeworld. The mighty crystal cities of the Proxima beings floated near Jupiter. The living vessels of the gas cloud intelligence drifted between Mars and Venus. The ancient wooden ships of the Eternals, grown rather than built, orbited Earth's moon. Ambassador Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching the Devourer fleet approach. They had taken the bait perfectly. Every single Devourer ship in the galaxy was heading toward Sol, drawn by the unprecedented concentration of life and technology. "They're coming faster than expected," reported Dr. Choi Hyjin. "The energy readings from our combined fleets are off the charts. They can't resist it." The Devourer fleet was a terrifying sight. Millions of dark ships, each one designed to consume entire worlds. They moved in perfect formation, their consuming beams already powering up. In 17 galaxies, this sight had meant the end of all hope. "All ships, this is Ambassador Tae-ho," he broadcast to the assembled fleet. "The Devourers will be in optimal position in 30 minutes. All non-essential personnel should evacuate to the jump ships now." But most beings chose to stay. The crystal beings chimed. That logic demanded they see the experiment through. The Eternals whispered that some moments were too important to witness from afar. Even Chancellor Vex 9 remained on his flagship, declaring that if the galaxy was going to end, he would face it with dignity. "Sir," called out Lee Min-ho from the science station, "the Devourers are doing something different. They're all coming at once. Usually they attack in waves, but they're sending everything at the same time." Tae-ho smiled grimly. "They can't help themselves. The energy concentration is too tempting. They're breaking their own patterns." The Devourer fleet reached the outer edge of the Sol system. Their consuming beams fired simultaneously, and the outer planets began to dissolve. The gathered ships of the Galactic fleet opened fire, not to win, but to make the Devourers commit fully to the battle. Phoenix Protocol is ready, announced Dr. Choi Hyjin. Solar collapse charges are in position. When you give the word, we can trigger the sequence. The battle was magnificent and terrible. The combined firepower of every species in the galaxy lit up space like a second sun, but the Devourers were winning. They consumed the outer planets and began moving inward, their beams focused on the richest targets. They're fully committed. Now, Tejo observed, every ship, every consuming beam, all focused on our fleet. They've abandoned their usual caution. Sir, Park Sunmi called out urgently. The Devourers are about to reach Earth. If we're going to do this ... Wait, Tejo said calmly. Wait until they taste victory. Wait until they think they've won. The Devourer fleet reached Earth's orbit. Their consuming beams began to drain the life from the planet. In space, the Galactic fleet was being systematically destroyed. It looked like the end of everything. Now? Dr. Choi Hyjin asked. Now, Tejo said simply. The sun exploded, but this was not a natural explosion. The Phoenix Protocol had turned Sol into a directed weapon. The star's death was channeled, focused, aimed directly at the heart of the Devourer fleet. The energy release was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Devourer ships, designed to consume energy, tried to absorb the stellar explosion. But there was too much too fast. Their systems overloaded. Their consuming beams reversed. For the first time in their existence across 18 galaxies, the Devourers were destroyed. In the chaos of the stellar explosion, the few surviving ships of the Galactic fleet activated their emergency jump drives. They escaped into hyperspace just as the shockwave reached them. Ambassador Tejo's ship was one of the few that made it out. As they emerged from hyperspace near Alpha Centauri, he looked back at where Sol had been. Earth was gone. The sun was gone. His homeworld had been sacrificed to save the galaxy. Sir? Dr. Choi Hyjin said softly. Long-range sensors confirm it. The entire Devourer fleet is destroyed. Every ship. The threat is over. Tejo nodded slowly. Around him, the survivors of dozens of species worked together to coordinate rescue operations. The impossible had happened. The galaxy was saved. Ambassador, Chancellor Vex 9's voice came over the communicator. The Galactic Council wishes to make a formal statement. We were wrong about humanity. You are not a young species. You are not primitive. You are something we had forgotten existed, a species willing to sacrifice everything for the future. The Council also wishes to announce, Quizultra added, that the new galactic capital will be established in the Alpha Centauri system, and the human species will be offered permanent leadership of the Galactic Defense Council. Tejo looked out at the stars, thinking of Earth and all the humans who had died to save the galaxy. We accept, he said simply. But we want it understood. We didn't do this to lead. We did this because sometimes someone has to be willing to do the impossible. And in the depths of space, where Sol had once shone, a new nebula was forming. The locals would call it the Phoenix Nebula, and it would serve as a reminder that sometimes the greatest victory requires the greatest sacrifice. The galaxy was safe. Humanity had spoken, and the universe itself had listened.